Well, I'm pretty sure that we all know what we're going to talk about today. I'm pretty sure that's not going to be hidden anywhere. So let's get right down to it. A leaked document from the Supreme Court suggests that the court may overturn Roe v. Wade, including some suggestions as to who may have done the leaking, why this person may have done the leaking, and some of the protests that are gathering off of this. So we'll talk just a bit about that and look at some of the meltdown and some of the reaction as well. And, well, if we get time to go over other stuff, what else do we have going on here? The GOP has introduced a bill, an actual bill, to terminate the Disinformation Governance Board instead of just talking about it. So we'll talk just a bit about what's happening with that. Samantha Powers suggests that food shortages could be a way to move into a socialistic society. So we'll go over just a bit about what's going on with that. And Apple staff has claimed that forcing them to work in person will lead to white supremacy. It is going to be all this and more. You're just mad you can't date me. I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. This might be the one. This might be the one that changes or does something with the midterms or just shows what it is that we're going to see off of here. And the protesters are already gathering. I'm guaranteeing you we're going to see an insurrection when we get up here later today. And that is going to be one of the things, too, that I'm really going to question. And I might even comment on one of the tweets that we have up here on here today is, how is this not an insurrection? Because, you know, we've been told, it's been shoved up our ass for how long that, you know, and they're going to come out and tell, well, it's because they didn't enter the Supreme Court. I guarantee you they're going to be trying. Oh, I guarantee you they're going to be trying. But yeah, it might be time to go over to Twitter today and remind some of these people that there is an insurrection going on. Just to see what it is that they have to say. I would love to see some of the justifications. And hey, if you get a good one, take a link of it or a screenshot and put it in the Discord. Maybe a screenshot because you're probably going to get it blocked after it, but go and have a look. But we got to get into it because after reorganizing everything, we did wind up getting a late start here over. So let's get the live chat up and let's get started. But before we do, head on over, check out the start page to turnsofpagesproductions.com. Turns of Pages Productions is going to be your one-stop shop for all of your news and commentary needs. Once we are up, running, and open, you are going to see great programs such as The Daily Ignoramus, The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Our friend Britt will be able to join the show as soon as she has an audio and video platform, so don't worry about that. We like Britt around here. And a new show will be joining the program once we get up to launch, so definitely go check that out. Help us give you news by the common man for the common man, and if you do feel so inclined, go check out our Give, Send, Go, givesendgo.com/turnsofpages101 to go help us out, get to our goal. That is, we're looking at a goal of $2,000 to go help with startup costs. So we like our web developer here, and we do want to go back and make sure that she is developing and getting paid for her development. So go check that out, givesendgo.com/turnsofpages101 for turnsofpagesproductions.com. Let's get into the finance here, which, you know, we're going to try to fly through that as much as we can. Now, one of the things and one of the reasons that I'm looking at and before we even get into talking about any of this as to why this happened right now, at the tail end of trading, at the very end of trading, enough purchases were made to go rocket that price of the Dow back up at the end. And then it tried to drop again, and it rocketed back up right as the close was happening. And now the futures are down again, which is telling me that, I know they'll keep telling you, and you guys will keep telling me too, that the Dow isn't the economy, the stock market isn't the economy, but it's a good indicator of where people think the economy is going to go and whether or not they want to put money into it right now. So it looks to me like somebody called in some favors at the end and say, hey, let's not let this close down for another X amount of days in a row, is what it looks like from here. As we look and see this, just the chart that we see up here, it's kind of up and up and down, and it was down almost 1,000 points again, and then shoot up once again. And now the futures are coming back down again, as we see. So some funky stuff going on here, and I do think there is an attempt to distract from the fact that our economy has essentially crashed. So we'll see what happens with that and where that goes. Trade that down just a little bit more. Looking at Bitcoin coming across the 5-day. On the 1-day, Bitcoin is down $9 US, so barely a blip on the radar, but otherwise, backing it back out to yesterday, it looks like it's holding steady, kind of whipsawing around for a little bit and then leveling itself back off like a bouncing ball, coming back down to $38,501 US and 80 US cents. Looking in at gas prices around the Madison area, we are up to a $3.77 in Madison. Most of our gas prices are staying around the $3.60 to $3.70 mark, $3.66, $3.68, $3.69, $3.72, but then we just have that one from 5 hours ago that's jumped itself up to $3.77. So, well, plan your summer trips accordingly, because it's looking like a lot of us aren't going to be able to afford to go on that road trip anymore. So we will see what happens with that. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. Dow futures drop ahead of federal meeting. 7 key earnings movers from Scott Latonin. Dow futures trimmed losses Tuesday morning ahead of the Federal Reserve's 2-day meeting. The 10-year Treasury yield ticked lower Tuesday morning following the Monday night's new high. BP, Avis Budget Group, and Nutrien all made sharp pre-market advances after late Monday, early Tuesday earnings reports. Other key earnings movers ahead of Tuesday's open, including Arista Networks, Devon Energy, Diamondback Energy, Expedia, Mosaic, NXP Semiconductors, and Pfizer. Arista rallied 1% in morning trade after strong earnings results. Devon shares climbed about 3%, Fang shares inched higher, Expedia jumped almost 5%, Mosaic slid around 2%, NXP shares moved up about 1%, and Pfizer dipped 1% in early morning trade. Twitter inched lower after Monday's 0.2% rise, and EV giant Tesla traded slightly lower Tuesday morning, still looking to add to Monday's gains. Among the Dow Jones leaders, Apple and Microsoft were down a fraction in today's stock market amid a new stock market rally attempt. Dow Jones leader Merck, along with IBD leaderboard stock Cheniere Energy, ExxonMobil, and World Wrestling Entertainment are among Tuesday's top stocks to watch. Cheniere, Microsoft, and Tesla are on the IBD leaderboard. Exxon and Merck were featured in this week's Stocks Nearby Zone column. Ahead of Tuesday's open, Dow dropped 0.2% versus fair value, S&P moved down 0.25%, and NASDAQ lost 0.3% versus fair value. Among the exchange-traded funds, the NASDAQ tracker Invesco QQQ Trust whittled early losses to trade flat. The SPDR S&P 500 dropped a fraction. The 10-year Treasury yield ticked down to 2.95% Tuesday after briefly topping 3%. There it is. They printed their way up to the point, without having the GDP to back it, that we hit 3% on the Treasury yield. On Monday, the 10-year yield hit a new 52-week high and reached its highest level since December of 2018. Meanwhile, U.S. oil prices slid more than 1%. West Texas Intermediate crude dipped narrowly below 104 a barrel after a disappointing first quarter growth data in China pointed to weaker than expected energy demand. The Fed's two-day policy meeting kicks off on Tuesday. That doesn't mean much for Tuesday's market action, but markets fully expect policymakers to announce a half-point rate hike when this week's Federal Reserve meeting wraps up on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. That's expected to be followed by more of the same, if not an even bigger hike. In the next two Fed meetings, any significant deviation to those expectations could stir a market reaction. So that's going to be the big one to watch, is what happens with the rate hikes and what happens with that. And they're going to be sitting around for 2 days and talking about this. So let the investors sit on the edge of their seats, and we will figure out what happens with that. Let's grab one from CNN before we get into what we're pretty much going to talk about for the rest of the day. Wealth Coach, the S&P is having its worst start to a year since 1939. From Paul R. LaMonica, the S&P fell more than 13% between January and April of this year. That's the worst 4-month start to a year since 1939, when longtime legendary investor Warren Buffett was just 9 years old. Comparing today's market to 83 years ago isn't an entirely apples-to-apples comparison. For one, the S&P was made up of only 90 companies back then, but it's been clearly an abysmal first third of the year for investors from any reference point. The Dow was down 9% through April, and the tech-heavy NASDAQ plummeted 21%. Stocks finished higher on a wild day of trading on Monday. The Dow rose 84 points, or 0.3%, after falling more than 525 points earlier in the session. The S&P increased 0.6%, while the NASDAQ gained 1.6%. There's an old Wall Street adage that many investors sell in May and go away. It's a pithy reference to the theory that bullish traders take a break during the summer and early autumn months, and that stocks will typically fall just before the winter holidays, or until just before the winter holidays. But this year, the big sell-off may have already happened, as there appears to have been a fair amount of panic-induced stock selling recently. The CNN Business Fear and Greed Index, which measures 7 indicators of market sentiment, was in fear mode after briefly falling into extreme fear territory on Monday. So, even CNN is coming out and saying the markets are possibly going to come crashing down. I'm here to see it. I'm ready to see what happens with this and where this goes and how the press office tries to talk its way back out of this. I'm not exactly, well, let's just say I'm pretty sure that they're going to lie, and they're going to lie, and they're going to lie, but you know, what else have we been seeing for the last few years out of this couple years out of this administration? You're not here to talk about the markets, though. You're here to talk about what is happening on the steps of the Supreme Court right now. Let's get into it. Let's get started. Tell some friends here so we can get some more conversation into this. Just so you know ahead of time before we get into this, I might have to change the title of this episode, because if this guy winds up being like the Erica Marshmallow, just having that name in there might actually get this shut down. I didn't think about that until after we were live. Let's do this. And we're going to start with Politico this morning. Supreme Court has voted to overturn abortion rights. Draft opinion shows. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled, Justice Alito writes in an initial majority draft circulated inside the court. Now, before I even start off of this, before we go into this, there are 2 things to remember about what is happening here. Number 1, first and foremost, this draft has not been entered. And there's a lot of conversation going on about whether or not this leak was meant to stir up a protest and try to pressure the justices to change their opinion. That's first and foremost. Second off, this does not outlaw abortion in this country. There are 2 options that can happen here, and it'll depend on what the actual opinion is. I've not read the opinion yet, or the draft opinion, or whatever it is. If If this is a matter of whether or not the decision was a matter of separation of powers, which they're using it as legislatively, then Congress can turn around and codify this if they can go find the votes in the Senate to go and do that, and they don't have them right now. The House can do it in a simple majority. The Senate has to get past the filibuster for it, or end the filibuster, as we'll see talk about coming with that later. Or if this is found to be a violation of, well, I mean, in both cases this happens, but if this is found to be a violation of the 10th Amendment, federalism, then the decision ultimately goes back to the states, which it also does until Congress codifies this as well. But yes, this is a decision that goes back to the states at this point as to whether or not they want to legalize this or not. And yes, as we'll see coming from a Fox Business article I have later on, another company has jumped on to say that they will cover abortion tourism. But let's read from Politico. And the protests have already started. It's interesting how quickly they can get those together. Maybe it was planned. This is from Josh Gerstein and Alexander Ward. The Supreme Court has voted to strike down the landmark Roe v. Wade decision, according to an initial draft majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito, circulated inside the court and obtained by Politico. The draft opinion is full-throated, unflinching repudiation of the 73 decision, which guaranteed federal constitutional protections of abortion rights, and subsequently a 1992 decision, Planned Parenthood v. Casey, that largely maintained the right. Roe was egregiously wrong from the start, Alito writes. And here is the opinion. It is 98 pages. We are not going to do this on air today, but I will be reading this opinion. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled, he writes in the document labeled as the opinion of the court. It is time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. So it does sound like this is going to be a separation of powers thing. It does sound like this is going to be we can't legislate, we're not a legislative body. Just in that initial sentence right there. Deliberations on the controversial case have in the past been fluid. Justices can and sometimes do change their votes as draft opinions circulate, and major decisions can be subject to multiple drafts and vote trading, sometimes until just days before the decision is unveiled. The court's holding will not be final until it is published, likely in the next 2 months. The immediate impact of the ruling, as drafted in February, would be to end a half-century guarantee of federal constitutional protection of abortion rights and allow each state to decide whether to restrict or ban abortion. It's unclear if there have been subsequent changes to the draft. No draft decision in modern history of the court has been disclosed publicly. While the case is still pending, that's important, pay attention to that. The unprecedented revelation is bound to intensify the debate over what was already the most controversial case on the docket this term. The draft opinion offers an extraordinary window into the justices' deliberations in one of the most consequential cases before the court. In the last 5 decades, some court watchers predicted the conservative majority would slice away at abortion rights without flatly overturning a 49-year precedent. The draft shows the court is looking to reject Roe's logic and legal protections. A person familiar with the court's deliberations said that 4 of the Republican-appointed justices, Thomas, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett, had voted with Alito in the conference held among the justices after hearing oral arguments in December, and that lineup remains unchanged as of this week. The 3 Democrat-appointed justices, Breyer, Sotomayor, and Kagan, are working on 1 or more dissents. According to the person, how Chief Justice Roberts will ultimately vote and whether he will join an already written opinion or draft his own is unclear. The document, labeled as a first draft in the majority opinion, includes a notation that it was circulated among the justices on February 10th. If the Alito draft is adopted, it would rule in favor of Mississippi in a closely watched case over the state's attempt to ban most abortions after 15 weeks. A Supreme Court spokesperson declined to comment or make another representative of the court available to answer questions about the draft document. So, I will be saving this, and I am going to go through this entire brief, even though I have no idea if this is going to be the case. But again, looking back at just what Politico has reported, this looks like this is going to be what a lot of people have talked about for this. Now, a lot of the more morals, a lot of our more Christian conservative friends, a lot of our more Christian libertarian friends, people like that are doing this from the fact of, you can't go out and do this, this is wrong because it's murder. And they're trying to legislate morality. And that's one thing that you can't really do is legislate morality. The left has tried to do it, the right has tried to do it, etc. But what we are doing with this, what has happened with this, and one of the biggest problems that I've seen with Roe, and I am, myself, against abortion. I just don't like the government doing it because the government tends to suck balls at everything. I would rather build a society where, A, we've got the financial resources to make sure that everybody gets who does get pregnant has the resources to go back and either put that child up for adoption and have somebody ready, willing, and able to go and adopt, or B, to be able to raise that child on his or her own. And yes, I want to see shame for the fathers who walk away from this, who walk away from their responsibility. I want to see a society that doesn't allow that to happen. I want to see a society where the father is a bitter, brutal fucking rapist, that he gets chemically castrated and still is on the hook financially for his kid. I want to see a society where this doesn't have to matter. But insofar as it does, the biggest problem with Roe was never the morality question of whether or not abortion is wrong. The biggest problem with Roe was how it was decided. That it went through the Supreme Court, and it was supposedly supposed to be untouchable because it went through the Supreme Court. I'm sure Dred Scott would like to have a conversation about that. In a situation that was clearly meant to be legislated. And I would go as far as to say, as a Federalist, that it should be legislated at a local level. In your community. Not necessarily at your state level, but if we've got a compromise, we could go to state level. Not necessarily at the state level, but in the community level, and not at the federal level. But so far as it has to be done at the federal level, let's make a law. Let's have Congress do this. And then have them be able to go back to the representation. And say, hey, I did this. Do you like me or hate me? But that's where we go from that. A bit more of a review from the Dissociated Press, and then we'll get into some of the other ends of this. From the Dissociated Press, draft opinion suggests High Court will overturn Roe. From Mark Sherman and Zeke Miller. A draft opinion circulated among Supreme Court justices suggests that earlier this year, a majority of them had thrown support behind overturning the 73 Roe v. Wade that legalized abortion nationwide, according to a report published Monday in Politico. It's unclear if the draft represents the court's final word on the matter. The Dissociated Press could not immediately confirm the authenticity of the draft. That is going to be important to note as well, is that we don't know how authentic this draft is. Which, if verified, marks a shocking revelation of the High Court's secretive deliberation process, particularly before a case is formally decided. A Supreme Court spokeswoman said the court had no comment. The news outlet published what was labeled as the first draft of the opinion of the court in a case challenging Mississippi's ban on abortion after 15 weeks, a case known as Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. The Supreme Court has yet to issue a ruling in the case, and opinions, and even justices' votes, have been known to change during the drafting process. The court is expected to rule on the case before its term is up in late June or early July. The draft is signed by Samuel Alito, a member of the court's 6-3 conservative majority, who was appointed by former President W. Roe was egregiously wrong from the start, the draft opinion states. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled, it adds, referencing the 1992 case Planned Parenthood v. Casey that affirmed Roe's findings of a constitutional right to abortion services but allowed states to place some of the constraints on the practice. It is time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. Yes, elected representatives, not unelected appointed judges. The draft opinion, in effect, states that there is no constitutional right to abortion services and would allow individual states to more heavily regulate or outright bar the procedure. Politico said that it only received a copy of the draft opinion from a person familiar with the court's proceedings in the Mississippi case, along with other details supporting the authenticity of the document. The report came amid legislative push to restrict abortion in several Republican-led states, Oklahoma being the most recent, and even before the court issues its decision, critics of those measures have said that low-income women will disproportionately bear the burden of the new restriction. The leak jump-started the intense political reverberations that the High Court's ultimate decision was expected to have in the midterm election year. Already, politicians on both sides of the aisle were seizing on the reports to fundraise and energize their supporters on either side of the hot-button issue. An AP NORC poll in December found that Democrats increasingly see protecting abortion rights as a high priority for the government. Other polling shows relatively few Americans want to see Roe overturned. In 2020, AP Votecast found that 69% of voters in the presidential election said the Supreme Court should leave the Roe decision as is. Just 29% said the court should overturn the decision. In general, AP NORC polling finds a majority of public favors abortion being legal in most or all cases. Which again, if I'm seeing this the way that they're reporting this, and again, having not read the decision yet, it does sound like the fact that, yes, okay, if this does wind up getting overturned, you're still going to have the opportunity to come back and run this through Congress. So that's what we see off of that. From the Daily Wire. Might have to move something around here. Yep, I want this up here. From the Daily Wire, tension builds outside Supreme Court after leak shows Roe may be overturned. Oddly enough, we can get protesters outside the Supreme Court within a night. I kind of want to look and see if there's any regional indicators for some of these sweatshirts here. I know that person's probably local because she's got a Georgetown sweatshirt on. I can't quite see what that one says. And I can't especially not see what the small print on this guy's sweatshirt is. A growing throng was on knife's edge outside the U.S. Supreme Court late Monday, following the bombshell leak of a draft decision from the High Court overturning the landmark Roe v. Wade case that guaranteed the federal right to abortion. Roads were blocked around the Supreme Court building immediately after the news broke that the upcoming ruling in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization would overturn the 1973 case. The decision was expected sometime over the next 2 months, but after Politico obtained a draft opinion by Samuel Alito and signed by a majority of justices, word spread quickly. Let's make a deal. For every one woman who dies from this, one of you goes to, a red hand-scrawled sign dangling from a coat hanger and left aloft by a woman protesting the apparent pending decision. As perhaps 700 demonstrators on both sides of the contentious issue gathered, the tension around the storied building was palpable. In writing that the High Court must overturn Roe and the related 1992 case, Planned Parenthood v. Casey, Alito reportedly wrote that the matter is for the states to determine. That means red states are sure to follow Mississippi, where the Dobbs case originated, and place more restrictions and perhaps bans on abortion. Legal abortion once and for all, read one banner, held by 2 members of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. We won't go back, we will fight back. Several jubilant pro-lifers gathered to celebrate, though they were. We're going to be here all night, standing vigil, and we're going to be here all day tomorrow, said Teresa Bukovinak, founder of the Progressive Anti-Abortion Uprising. We're just so energized by the news, and we're hoping Roe is history. The leak has rocked the political world, prompting harsh words from Democrats eager to defend abortion across the U.S. The Republican-appointed justices reported votes to overturn Roe v. Wade would go down as an abomination. One of the worst and most damaging decisions in modern history, said Majority Leader Chuck U. Schumer and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Several of these conservative justices, who are in no way accountable to the American people, have lied to the U.S. Senate, ripped up the Constitution, and defiled both precedent and the Supreme Court's reputation. So, and we've got some of the protests going on here, so let's look. Let's have a glance.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
And I've said this numerous times before, but you would think that the party that has the monopoly on artists, on musicians, on rappers would be able to come up with a new chant every time that there's something that pisses them off, but they keep using the same chant over and over again. Hey, hey, ho, ho, thing we don't like has got to go. Most of them probably learned it from their parents, who were using it at the time Roe was probably being decided. Well, no, most of these people's parents probably hadn't been born yet by that point. SCOTUS blog tweets out, it's impossible to overstate the earthquake that this will cause inside the court in terms of the destruction of the trust among the justices and the staff. This leak is the gravest and most unforgivable sin. And, of course, you see a lot of people, like Jennifer Rubin. Elise Hogue replies to this and says, I'm going to suggest that the leak is probably not even in the top 5 of the gravest, most unforgivable sins of the last few years in the SCOTUS world. After all, you know, they confirmed Kavanaugh. Oh my God, he's such a rapist. You know that's going to come up too, by the way. And Jennifer Rubin. But it does underscore that this is not a court. It's a partisan outfit to enforce Christian nationalism. Because kicking it to the states and the legislature is Christian nationalism. I like this one too. Natalie Johnson tweets out, I am pro Roe versus Wade. Those saying it's overturning is the worse than leaking the Supreme Court decision don't recognize the history of precedents or the immense damage this does to trust and impartiality inside the court. To which Genius, David Millar, says, the court stopped being impartial years ago and literally ended when the GOP denied the president his right, his privilege, by the way, to replace a judge. Oh, that's a good point, Randy. That woman didn't get the memo that Fight Like Hell was a direct threat to violence, and even in the absence of violence. And yes, I do hope that some of you people will be around Twitter today to remind people what an insurrection is. I do want to talk, this is an op-ed from the Daily Wire, but this is from a Harvard lawyer. As much as I don't care for a particular Harvard lawyer, I do defer to his judgment on this because he knows where the impartiality should be too. So this is from Ben Shapiro himself. Late on Monday evening, May 2nd, Politico broke a world-shattering story. It posted an exclusive leak of a purported majority opinion in Dobbs versus Mississippi, the case considering whether or not Roe versus Wade, which created out of whole cloth the right to abortion, ought to be overruled. The majority opinion was written by Samuel Alito. It rejected in totality both Roe and the entire chain of cases following therefrom, including Planned Parenthood versus Casey. The draft decision states, "It's time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. This is what the Constitution and the rule of law demand." The draft opinion, which is almost certainly authentic, I'm 50-50 on that one. It reads just like Justice Alito and utterly dismantles the legal non-reasoning of Roe and Casey, would amount to a reversion of all abortion law to the state level where it originally resided. As the decision concludes, abortion presents a profound moral question. The Constitution does not prohibit the citizens of each state from regulating or prohibiting abortion. Roe and Casey arrogated that authority. We now overrule these decisions and return that authority to the people and their elected representatives. But there's another issue here too. Who leaked the draft decision? This is not an ancillary issue. It's absolutely primary. It's primary for two reasons. First, the draft decision is just that, a draft decision. No one has presumably voted for it yet. Drafts change over time, and they're subject to feedback from other members of the majority. The attempt to leverage the public pressure against the justices is an attempt to strangle the Alito majority opinion in the crib and generate fractures on the court. Were the final court decision to depart widely from Alito's draft now, it would be crystal clear that the public pressure played in the main role, and that's the reason the draft was leaked. The Supreme Court, which supposedly is above petty politics, will now be subject to a tsunami of threats from a snarling left wing enraged by the prospect of restrictions on killing in the womb. Second, the leak of the draft decision demonstrates the absolute disdain the legal left holds for the rule of law. As Scotus Blog puts it, it's impossible to overstate the earthquake this will cause inside the court in terms of the destruction of trust among the justices and staff. This leak is the gravest, most unforgivable sin. Whomever leaked this, and the smart bet is on some social activists in Justice Sotomayor's office, should be immediately prosecuted. Instead, watch for the media to treat the leaker as either an afterthought or as a hero. And again, I'm probably going to have to change the title of this particular episode. Because, again, as I said at the top of the show, this is probably going to be like the Erica Marshmallow thing, where this person has to be protected above all else for everything else, and you can't even say his name. After all, the left treats leaks of IRS documents as fine as long as they target the right people. The leak of unverified smut about the sitting president in the Steele dossier was treated as both newsworthy and courageous by the press. So, that's the opinion. That's not what I thought that was going to be when I started this out, but that is the opinion of Shapiro on where this goes, and I'm surprisingly in line with what Shapiro has to say. I'm typically not. From The Blaze. This coming out before this news dropped. Trio of pro-choice groups set to shell out $150 million during the midterm election cycle. I bet you that number triples now. From Alex Nitzberg. 3 pro-choice groups are planning to collectively shell out a whopping $150 million during the 2022 election cycle, according to a press release on the NARAL pro-choice American website, which named Planned Parenthood Action Fund and Emily's List as the other two entities. while each will run its own electoral programs with their own advocacy and political organizations. Today's announcement represents a united effort to aggressively respond to the unprecedented attacks on sexual and reproductive rights and abortion rights across the country and raise voters' awareness of the lawmakers who are to blame, the press release noted. The collective investment will be used by Planned Parenthood's advocacy and political organizations, Narwhal, Pro-Choice America, and Emily's List in a variety of tactics, including where legally appropriate, voter outreach, paid advertising, message research, mobilization efforts, polling PAC contributions to candidates, training and communications guidance to support the abortion access movement, and in-person actions at state capitals and in Washington, D.C. These efforts are in addition to the robust investment made in collaboration with local and state partners, reproductive justice organizations, and other allies to mobilize supporters and push back against abortion restrictions, the press release stated. So this was already going to be a big deal, and they were going to come back and start pumping money into this, even before this was, which, again, there's a part of me that has to sit back and wonder, was this planned? Did they come back out here and do this because, well, they needed to have something coming into the midterm. They needed to have some sort of win coming into the midterm, or some way to get voters out and energized. Knowing full well that I don't think that they're going to be, given the fact that the economy is in the tank, given the fact that your gas prices are huge, given the fact that, we had the botched withdrawal that nobody talks about, the war in Ukraine. Ignoramus talked about that a little bit on his Twitter. We'll be looking at that later on, but yeah, there's really no reason for any of these people to come out to vote, and now there is one. And I've said it before, too. I mean, the GOP is great at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. They're fantastic at it. They're amazing at it. And this is a situation that we can see that'll be just like that. You're poised for an easy victory, but now you want to go after this particular issue right away. Going into a midterm, I don't know if this was going to be released before or after the midterm, but going into a midterm, you want to put this on your plate right away. And watch the left come back out and revolt. I don't know. From Fox Business, Amazon to cover $4,000 in travel costs for employee abortions, non-life-threatening medical treatments. From Lucas Manfredi. Yes, Amazon will be doing abortion tourism. Starting Monday, Amazon will cover up to $4,000 in travel expenses annually for employees who get non-life-threatening medical treatments, including abortions. An internal message, first reported by Reuters and confirmed by Fox Business, notes that the new reimbursement is available to the company's U.S. corporate and warehouse employees or cover dependents enrolled in Primera or Aetna Health. The policy, which is effectively retroactive from January 1st, applies if an operation is not applicable within 100 miles of the employee's home and virtual care is not possible. In addition to abortions, Amazon's new policy also covers treatments related to cardiology, cellular gene therapies, and substance abuse disorder services. Amazon also offers up to $10,000 in annual travel reimbursements for life-threatening issues. The Supreme Court is due to rule by the end of June in a case that gives the conservative majority a chance to roll back abortion rights or even overturn the landmark case that legalized the procedure nationwide. About 2 dozen states, including Oklahoma and Alabama, have laws poised to limit abortion access should the Roe ruling be overturned. Other companies that have offered to cover travel expenses for employees seeking abortions include Citigroup and Yelp. Meanwhile, Lyft and Uber said they would cover legal fees for drivers sued under Texas' new law limiting access to abortions. So, Amazon has become the latest one to come back out here because they don't care about their employees coming out, raising a family, coming back and supporting the next generation of workers. They just want to make sure that their little drones are on the floor packaging projects, packaging product for you and never have to miss a day of work, except to go and get the procedure that would make them miss a whole lot more days of work. Boy, that sounds compassionate, doesn't it? So this is the point. This is what we have to say with this, and this is the title card. And I'm going to make an executive decision now, and I'm not going to say the name out loud, and yes, I will go back and change the title. But this is allegedly the leaker, student from Yale Law School and a Sotomayor clerk. I know some of the comments here are definitely a Mayflower descendant. Typical American name, classic Bugman physiognomy. Yeah, we've got all this kind of stuff off of this, but there have been some other things, and what I could find about this particular gentleman is not green check verified, which makes me suspicious out of a lot of things off of this. I don't know. I'm going to come right out and say, I don't think this guy's a leaker. I think this guy was the fall guy. There's just so much here that doesn't add up to this. I think either Sotomayor herself leaked this, or somebody even further up in the cabal leaked this, and they threw this poor kid under the bus. Because it does appear that he has already a profound career in front of him. Who is what's happened? Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor. A person called Clerks for Supreme Court Justice Sotomayor, as a Yale student, blasted Yale for supporting Brett Kavanaugh's nomination, was quoted in a 2017 Politico piece by Josh Gerstein. Today, Gerstein published this draft SCOTUS opinion on Roe. Of Sequoia Capital, India, will step down as CEO to pursue entrepreneurship. The Blue venture capital firm confirmed in a series of tweets on the microblogging site Twitter on Wednesday. Blank joined Sequoia in 2019 from a global taxi company, Uber, as part of the growth stage venture capital firm's investment business based in Singapore. A graduate of the Institute of Technology, Delhi, and Stanford University, will continue to serve as Sequoia India's entrepreneur in residence while developing plans for his new venture. Joins us from Uber in 2019 and brings a world-class operator perspective to our investment team. He has contributed amazingly to many startups, leading our co-leading growth rounds and delivering an impressive track record at scale larger company abroad, Sequoia India said in a statement on Twitter. So if this is the same guy who is a CEO who's already a big business mandate in India, why is he clerking for Sotomayor? I have a big question about that. I have a major question about that. Because none of this makes sense to me. And also the fact that the only people who are pointing this out right now, who are bringing this guy's name up, are conservative blogs. Another one here coming from Newser says, leaked draft opinion. This is the gravest, most unforgivable sin. From Ivan Gastaldo. Politico was the media outlet that received the copy of the draft opinion, revealing that the Supreme Court is set to overturn abortion rights, and in a separate piece, the news site reports that such breach is exceedingly rare, perhaps unprecedented. No, this is not exceedingly rare. This is the first time this has ever happened. Indeed, Supreme Court historians, former law clerks, and other court watchers cannot recall any other time a draft opinion was leaked prior to a high court making its decision final. In a handful of other cases, hints as to how the court would rule were leaked. One of that handful, Roe v. Wade, or there were indications that insider information had made its way out of the court and into the media or political realm. The piece, which gives more extensive rundown of other such suspected leaks, and which can be read in full, notes that many of these cases, Supreme Court law clerks, the roughly 3 dozen attorneys who typically do one-year stints before reading briefs and helping draft opinions, have been blamed. It's impossible to overstate the earthquake that this will cause inside the court in terms of the destruction of trust among the justices and staff. The leak is the gravest, most unforgivable sin, tweets SCOTUS blog. Conservative commentator Ben Shapiro was among the many people questioning who did it. Whoa, he tweeted. He later speculated it was likely a perverse attempt to create public pressure against the court, perhaps by clerk of Democrat-appointed Judge Sonia Sotomayor. National Review writer Michael Brendan Doherty tweets that it's also possible, at least thinkable, that an angry conservative clerk leaked this as the majority opinion that could have been, had not Justice so-and-so flaked out. Republican strategist Matt Wolking was also looking for breadcrumbs, tweeting that Sotomayor had a clerk named who once blasted Yale for supporting Brett Kavanaugh's nomination, and then, in 2017, was quoted in Politico piece by the same writer who authored the bombshell in the draft opinion leak. Whoever leaked the draft, National Review noted back in December that it would be tough for the High Court to keep its decision in the Mississippi case a secret. It will be quite impressive if it can keep a secret this time. And if it can't, we may see a pressure campaign on the court, or worse, violence, unprecedented in modern times, wrote Dan McLaughlin. Which means insurrection, except for it's not an insurrection because the people have the right politics. So, I don't know, dude. I think that I really do think that this is a fall guy. That this was put out for whatever reason, to draw outrage. To bring the protesters in, to get the attention off of the botched Ukrainian operation, and the fact that we're sending another payment over there every month. To take attention off of the failing economy, to take attention off the Twitter thing, that they are in no position to stop right now. And put the attention back on the Supreme Court. The hated Supreme Court. While there's still 2 months left, give or take, before we actually see a decision off of this. But I don't think it was that dude. I really don't. I think he is just the fall guy. And one more before we go look at the reactions off of this. Abortion supporters leaked a draft majority opinion indicating that the Supreme Court has voted to strike down Roe in an effort to intimidate and pressure the justices, pro-life advocates say. Politico broke the news Monday that the Supreme Court has voted to strike down the landmark decision, reporting that Justice Alito had written a draft that's an unflinching repudiation of Roe v. Wade. The leak appears to be totally political in nature, not only intended to damage the court and pressure the justices, but more immediately to incite Democrats to push their laundry list of terrible anti-life ideas, including blowing up the filibuster and attempting to codify abortion violence, and we'll be looking at this in some of the tweets as well. At the federal level, prior to the November elections, Katie Glenn, Government Affairs Counsel at Americans for Life United, told the Daily Wire, no, they're not going to do it before the midterms, and I'll tell you why, once we're done looking through the tweets. The draft majority opinion, which is not final, says Roe was egregiously wrong. We hold that Roe and Casey must be overruled, Alito wrote. It's time to heed the Constitution and return the issue of abortion to the people's elected representatives. Carrie Severino, president of the Judicial Crisis Network, pointed out the danger the leak poses to the institutional integrity of the court. That type of leak is an outrageous betrayal of trust, she told the Daily Wire. The Supreme Court is the only institution in town that doesn't leak, and to do this is a real attack on the institution of the court, not to mention just an outrageous breach in the trust of the justices to do so, she said. AUL's chief legal officer and general counsel, Stephen Aden, said it was outrageous that the draft language was leaked, presumably by pro-abortion staffers within the court. It is a cynical and naked attempt to pressure justices to alter course in Dobbs and perpetuate abortion violence. the court must or should maintain the moral high ground, stick to the clear and courageous language in this draft opinion, and not allow itself to be ruled by the expectations of the pro-abortion activists or proxy media allies. So yes, as they said, probably an attempt to go back and get public opinion swayed and get the people out and protesting. Let's go back and look at the protest for just a moment here. I'm going to step up away from the desk for a moment. But I will leave you with what's happening out there and the terrible, terrible, terrible chance that there always are.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
You would think that by this point they would have at least a new chant, but nope, it's the same one over and over again, every time. Alright, let's look at some of the reactions to this. Starting with friend of the show, Stephen Ignoramus. Iggy Normus, actual journalist, tweets out, "Yo, the war in Ukraine ended tonight, yo." Aww. I think Twitter deleted my comment. I don't think Ignoramus did. I think Twitter did. Because I replied to this and I said, would you say... I'm going to refresh this just to see if it shows up. Yes, there it was. I replied to that and I said, could you say the mission was aborted? I'm here all week, folks. Oh, look, insurrection is already trending. I know we're doing Twitter trending at the end of the show, but... This SCOTUS leak is an actual insurrection, an attempt to completely upend and delegitimize the rule of law, incite violence and chaos, and potentially plunge the nation into a civil war. So when the left storms the Supreme Court like they tried to during the Kavanaugh hearings, all of them will be arrested for insurrection or no? No, they won't be. Benny Johnson says, every one of these people must be arrested for insurrection and threatening democracy. They're interfering with the function of the branch of government and their constitutional duties. Lock them in DC jails with no bails. These are the rules now. No, that's not what's going to happen. You know better than that. I can't even hear what they're trying to say that's got to go, and it looks like they're trying to say a bunch of different stuff at once. But yes, we have insurrection already trending. So, good for you guys who went in and participated in that. Alright, Keeping Colorado Blue tweets out, abortion is basic health care, and the argument over when life begins is a red herring that has no place in this debate. Without Roe, women have fewer rights than a corpse. And I'm going to listen to this, but again, I'm going to warn that I have not listened to this yet. So this might be a jaw drop for me again, just like we saw yesterday. When I listened to that fucking nut job talking about burning and fricasseeing babies.
Here's the thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when life begins. It doesn't matter whether a fetus is a human being or not. That argument is a red herring, a distraction, a subjective and unwinnable argument that could not matter less. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about a fertilized egg or a fetus or a baby or a 5-year-old or a Nobel Prize winning pediatric oncologist. Nobody has a right to use your body against your will, even to save their life or the life of another person. That's it. That's the argument. You cannot be forced to donate blood or marrow or organs, even though thousands die every year on waiting lists. They cannot even harvest your organs after your death without your explicit, written, pre-mortem permission. Denying women the right to an abortion means a woman has less bodily autonomy than a corpse.
Really? I see the logical fallacy you're trying to put out with this. I understand that, but you did the act. That makes the babies. And yes, by the way, there are dozens, if not thousands of ways to make sure that you don't have babies. I've said numerous times, I am the last person in the world to preach celibacy to you. I'm the last person in the world to say keep it in your pants until you're married. Because I'm guilty of going the other direction. But you also have to have the common knowledge, if you don't want to get pregnant, to take steps in the act to make sure that you don't get pregnant. And if all else fails, have you ever tried not fucking? And this one was fun. Wham tweets out, so no more vaccines to keep you safe from me then, right? Okay, deal. Because, that is the safe point. Forcing a medical procedure on that to keep other people safe. Keeping Colorado blue tweets back, where are you that has a vaccine mandate right now? And Wham tweets back and says, well, you lost, but you wanted it, and don't pretend that you didn't. To which I turned around and said, wait, I can do this impression. I got into this retcon argument last week. There was never a policy in place. Your argument is invalid. Plus, there was a testing option.
Here's the thing. It doesn't matter.
Oh, shut up. Go kill another fucking baby. You murderer. John Fetterman tweets out, let's be clear, the right to an abortion is sacred. Democrats have to act quickly to get rid of the filibuster to pass the Women's Health Protection Act and finally codify Roe into law. We cannot afford to wait. And that dumb giraffe, literally your mom, tweets back, it's not sacred. And that's actually where I found this one here. Now, one of the things that I want to come back with and talk about with this as well is whether or not this is a backroom attempt to go back and try to kill the filibuster before the midterms so they can get some agenda back through. And we'll see in some of these other tweets that are coming up here in just a moment that seems to be the recurring theme as we go with this. But if this is a back way to go in and pressure your representative, your senator, to go kill the filibuster. Friend of the show, Right Girl Problems. Quote tweets the ACLU. The ACLU saying, this opinion would deprive half of the nation of a fundamental constitutional right that's been enjoyed by millions for 50 years. And that's the word that's important, is the enjoyed part. in breach of protocol at the court pales in comparison to the breach in the constitutional freedoms the court is charged with upholding. Right Girl Problems quote tweets, saying back, enjoyed by millions. Enjoyed. Enjoyed! Burn in the hottest circle of hell, you pustules of rotting filth. Thank you, Olive, for that opinion. The Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, D. Twitch. People elected Democrats precisely so we could lead in perilous moments like these, okay, puppy? To codify rule, hold corruption accountable, and have a president who uses his legal authority to break through congressional gridlock on items from student debt to climate. It's high time we do it, okay, puppy? If we don't, what message does that send? We can't sit around, finger point, and hand wring as people's futures and equality are on the line, okay, puppy? It's time to be decisive. Lead with confidence, fight for a prosperous future for all, and protect the vulnerable. Leave it all in the field, okay, puppy? Leave it to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to take the abortion argument and link it back over to student loan forgiveness. What else do we have? What else do we have? Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders. Congress must pass legislation that codifies Roe v. Wade as the law of the land in this country now. And if there aren't 60 votes in the Senate to do it, and there are not, we must end the filibuster to pass it with 50 votes. And the Bernie babies are out in force on this one. I'm literally shaking from this news. As a woman, it's absolutely terrifying Googling what countries are best for a woman to live in. You're not going to leave over this. News Defiant says, the answer to that Google search should be America in a blue state if you want access to legal abortion. Yes, because again, this doesn't outlaw this. The propaganda machine is out there screaming and screeching out as much propaganda as they can to tell you that this is completely outlawed at this point, and it's not. The decision goes back to the states. And I'm guessing that if you are a Bernie baby, you're probably in a state that's going to allow it. Unfortunately, my state's probably going to allow it. I'm sure the legislature is going to come back and come up with a bill that Tony Evers is just going to go bap, 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 over and over again, too. Call Me Cordelia says, Senator, you and your colleagues need to get this done. If I get pregnant and can't have an abortion, I could quite literally die. Please protect women. Please fight for us. I could literally die if I get pregnant and can't have an abortion. Paul Miller says, or you could practice safe sex. Call Me Cordelia tweets back and says, I do. I've become pregnant twice while using contraceptives. They don't always work. And No Longer Sad says, sounds like you shouldn't be having sex then. So, that's what we see off of that. And the last one, of course, our noble Native American Senator Elizabeth Warren. An extremist Supreme Court is posed to overturn Roe versus Wade. Husband, will you get me a beer, please? And impose its far-right, unpopular views on the entire country. It's time for the millions who support the Constitution and abortion rights to stand up and make their voices heard. We're not going back. Not ever. I don't know if I don't know if this is this guy trolling or whatnot, but he says if you see or hear something, say something, the natives are really restless. Warpath insurrection. Call out the FBI and the National Guard. Unpopular view. Liz is losing it. Actually, she lost it a long time ago. But yes, and I see that like Randy was talking about this, and they were talking about the Hail Mary off of this, and yeah, here it is. Had enough? Vote every Republican out of office. Vote blue 2022. An independent voter says, pass a goddamn bill that makes roll the law. Which again, I am against the practice. And even if it becomes a codified law, I'm still going to come out and say, no, don't do this. This is bad. This is wrong. Slavery was the law of the land. It was still wrong for a long time. But put your money where your mouth is, for God's sakes. And make the law. Stop waiting on 9 unelected members of the judiciary to do it for you. If this is really that important to you, and clearly it is, put your name on it. Put your name to it. All right. And that's what we have for the abortion. And again, just a little bit of review because, you know, we've been talking about this for a little bit over an hour now. Just a little bit of a review of what we're seeing off of this. This is a leaked document coming to a crucial campaign position about something that was actually likely going to happen, where people are now gathering outside the Supreme Court ready to have an, quote, insurrection over something that's not going to outlaw the practice to begin with. Something that's still going to be debated on either a congressional level or state level. And something where you can still move around the country and do the nasty thing that they think that you want to go back and do. So, that's your abortion ban. And again, mostly, I really don't think that this guy did it. I don't think this guy leaked this. The more I look at this, the more I see the reactions, the canned responses, and everything that came out of this. I think this guy is going to be the fall guy. He's going to be the guy that the mainstream left comes back and throws out and says, hey, look at this guy over here. This is the guy you have to hate. I think somebody else came back out here and leaked this. I really do. All right. Let's talk a bit about some of the rest of the stuff we have here. But we are going to have to cut it short because, well, I still have to go to work after this. The Post-Millennial tweets out, House GOP introduces bill to terminate Biden's Disinformation Governance Board. I'm not crossing my fingers on that one, dude. I'm not. I'm sorry. Because what does the religious right like better than the ability to come back and censor your speech and make sure that you believe in their truth? And I'm not talking about like the Greens and the Boberts, who are so religiously dedicated to the MAGA movement that they can't imagine life without a MAGA movement. I'm talking about the Bushes, the Romneys, and the people like that. You know, the McCains, the Meghan McCains, the Kinzingers, the people like that. The Christian conservatives, so-called, who are so Christian that they want to outlaw the ability for you to think any other way other than Christianity. And they will find you in your back room where you're talking about your atheist nonsense. Those kinds of assholes would love to have their hands on something like the Disinformation Governance Board. From Nick Monroe. Republicans in Congress have authored a bill to discontinue the Department of Homeland Security's Disinformation Governance Board as soon as possible. The Ministry of Truth Termination Act was written by Lauren Boebert and the first made public on Friday. The outlined intention of the bill is to terminate the Disinformation Governance Board of the Department of Homeland Security and to prohibit the use of federal funds to establish any similar board for any other purposes. Since the Ministry of Truth was revealed earlier this week, prominent figures like Ron DeSantis, Tulsi Gabbard, and Elon Musk have publicly condemned it. I haven't seen Tulsi's condemnation of it. I'd be interested, but that's also because I really like Tulsi. Boebert explained earlier Friday afternoon why she was bringing the bill forward. Let's listen.
Hey everyone, Lauren Boebert here outside the U.S. Capitol where my team and I have just finished up the final edits on a bill to totally defund and prohibit the future formation of a so-called Disinformation Governance Board at the Department of Homeland Security. Here's an idea. Instead of trying to pull from the playbook of Stalin and Mao, how about securing our southern border so we don't have 3 million illegal aliens invading our country? How about building the wall so we don't have mobile morgues filled with dead migrant bodies? Mayorkas, stop acting like a dictator and try acting like you give a darn about the safety and security of your fellow Americans. Now is when we, the people, make our voices heard. We will not accept being called domestic terrorists for showing up to school boards, and we sure as heck won't be allowing these corrupt bureaucrats to create a ministry of truth to gaslight the American people. Oh, and yes, we will be impeaching this tyrant. My bill, the Protecting Free Speech Act, will be coming soon. So y'all, stay tuned.
Well, we'll see. Like I said, the Christian conservative far right would love to have their hands on a bill, on a government program like this. So when's the last time we actually saw a government program get shut down? I am not entirely convinced that anybody's going to shut this down once it's in. They're just going to try to use it to their advantage. From the Daily Wire, some news on the red-haired bobblehead. Bobblehead dodges direct question on whether Disinfo Board will censor Americans. Twice. From Virginia Kruta. White House Press Secretary Red-Haired Bobblehead dodged direct questions twice about the newly announced Disinformation Governance Board, whether or not it would actively seek to censor stories that could be damaging to President Brandon or his administration. Fox News correspondent Peter Doocy raised the question during Monday's briefing because it's always Peter Doocy. Do you think those two make out after the press briefing? Because they're always paying attention to each other. Asking first whether or not President Biden was aware that the Department of Homeland Security was putting together the board. Let's listen. Oops. The wrong tab open over here.
And then on another topic, does the president know that DHS is putting together this Disinformation Governance Board?
Well, Peter, I think I would note, and I'm not sure if this has been in your reporting yet, but this is a continuation of work that was done under the prior administration, under the Trump administration, to take steps to address disinformation, address the use of disinformation in helping smugglers prompt the movement of more migrants across to the border. I would note that the first example given in the announcement about this was DHS's work to understand how, quote, misinformation spread by human smugglers that prey on vulnerable populations attempting to migrate to the United States. So for anyone who's out there who may be concerned about the increase in migrants to the border, this is the kind of apparatus that's working to address disinformation. And again, continuing the work of the Department of Homeland Security in 2020, something we're currently applauding.
What? All right, let's keep going.
Just in terms of what the president wants out of this, does he want the people on this board to start censoring information that is not helpful to him?
Well, let me be clear on exactly what this board does, or what the work they are doing does. And in their announcement, which is publicly available on the Department of Homeland Security website for anyone to read, it says, quote, The primary mission is to establish best practices to ensure that efforts to understand and respond to disinformation are done in ways that protect privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties, and the right to free speech.
Oh, goodness. Let's see. Let's go on to one other video off of this, and that'll be the last one.
There's this woman, Nina Jankowicz, who is going to be in charge of the board. She has said that she thinks the Hunter Biden laptop is Russian disinformation. So should we look forward in the future to her censoring internet traffic about the Hunter Biden laptop?
I think I noted exactly what the objective of the board is, including continuing the work of the prior administration. And the woman you noted has extensive experience and has done extensive work addressing disinformation. She has testified before Congress, testified in Europe. She has worked closely with the Ukrainians and has unique expertise, especially at this moment we're facing.
So, yeah, about that. Is this going to spy on the American people? Well, what this is going to do is this is going to go and we're going to target disinformation coming from the border, because this is absolute. How much disinformation is actually coming from the border, red-haired bobblehead? Like, seriously, how much of that is actually coming? All right, another one here from The Blaze. CNN guest appearance goes viral as he delivers hysterical rant on the need to control unfettered free speech. Just kind of thinking on where I want to cut from here. Because I know, like I say, I don't think we're going to make it to the end today. Let's check this one, and then I'll look over what we have left. Was it that Steven says, "We are getting nothing done here today, yo"? This is from Sarah Taylor. Journalist and author David Zurowick appeared on Sunday's broadcast of Unreliable Sources, where he went into panic mode as he delivered frenzied remarks on what he said is the necessity of being able to moderate free speech. Sunday's roundtable discussion on CNN show featured Brian Stelter, April Ryan, Zurowick, and more. During the episode, Zurowick addressed Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk's Twitter acquisition, which he said is nothing short of dangerous. Do you not have the video? Really? Apparently we've got to watch it from CNN. Which is fine, we can do that.
There's a bigger problem that when we focus on the personalities of people like Elon Musk, and people say, oh, I think Elon's thinking this or that. There's a bigger problem here about how we are going to control the channels of communication in this country. In 1927, we had the Radio Act. 1934, the Communications Act. Congress stepped in. We made rules. FCC wasn't great, but it's still regulating the broadcast industry. You can't use vulgar language. You can't do all these things with speech. We gave over our what amounts to our airwaves or our internet waves to Mark Zuckerberg and Elon Musk. And we are in so much trouble because those guys believe in making money. We've already seen that with the 2016 election in Zuckerberg when he was taking rubles for ads from Russia and saying, oh, I think it's crazy to think they had any influence on this election. Musk is the same. Musk doesn't want it. You know, he's upset with the SEC, tried to, how dare they question him? You know what I'm saying? This is dangerous. We can't think anymore in this country. We don't have people, no, I'm serious, we don't have people in Congress who can make regulations that can make it work. I think we can look to the Western countries in Europe for how they are trying to limit it. But you need controls on this. You need regulation. You cannot let these guys control discourse in this country or we are headed to hell. We are there. Trump opened the gates of hell and now they're chasing us down.
Wait, we gotta get Molly's reaction because you've been covering this for days. Oh, well, I'm not here to defend, Elon Musk. But look, I mean, one of the things he said he wants to do that has been pointed to by some experts as something that could improve discourse on the platform is to authenticate people, right? Get rid of what he calls the spam bots, try to make people have real identities. Now, would that go a long way in stopping some of the targeting, some of the harassment? I don't know. But a lot of the changes that he's talking about making the algorithm transparent, right? Giving people access to the sort of source code that controls what can and can't be seen. That's another thing that people like Frances Haugen, the Facebook whistleblower, have said could go a long way in actually cleaning this up in a systemic way. Because the way it's done now, where it's individual flawed humans with biases trying to make judgment calls in real time on really difficult stuff that we don't actually know, trying to discern the truth or falsehood of individual pieces of information in fast-moving, difficult situations like the 2020 election, that clearly isn't working so great either. So if he has got a way to, change the system in a way that makes discourse better, I think we could all use that.
Well, of course, for somebody like April Ryan, change the discourse to make it better is, make it so that they're the only voices that get to be heard. But, that's CNN.
There's a bigger problem that when we...
These people are they're panicking. They're in full panic mode because they have had the thumb on the pulse. They've had their hand on the throat of how information was disseminated for so long. And now they don't have their hands on it anymore. Whether it's right or wrong, also. That's a big one. Whether it is right or wrong, they don't control the narrative anymore. So, and they're panicking. Let's talk about student loan forgiveness, because that's going to be the next big thing coming into our next election. We'll grab one from Fox Business, which I hear might be fake news, from certain people from a certain website over in the chat. House Republicans demand answers from CBO after it miscalculated student loan program budgets by $500 billion. From Kyle Morris. House Republicans are calling on the Congressional Budget Office to provide information on how it miscalculated the cost of the federal student loan program associated with the Healthcare and Education Reconciliation Act. Signed into law in 2010 by former President Obama, the measure, which included a federally backed student loan program, was estimated to save taxpayers $40 to $62 billion from 2010 to 2020. However, in 2019, the CBO issued a new projection and said the program would cost taxpayers $31.5 billion over the next 10 years. In a letter sent to CBO Director Philip Swagel on Friday, 15 Republicans requested the formulas the agency used that led to the miscalculation and resulted in taxpayers footing more than $400 billion for the creation of the program. The letter highlights an internal analysis conducted by the Department of Education in 2020, which evaluated $1.37 trillion in student loans held by the federal government. The department concluded, as noted in the letter, that loan borrowers would pay back $935 billion worth of those loans, leaving taxpayer dollars to fund the remaining $435 billion. CBO miscalculated the cost of the Healthcare and Reconciliation Act by $503 billion before factoring in President Biden's student loan bailouts. The Republicans wrote Congress may not have passed the bill had CBO appropriately scored it. Congress needs an updated, accurate, and transparent estimate from CBO so it can fix our student lending programs going forward. The fastest fix to student lending programs is to allow them to be discharged in bankruptcy. They will be fixed overnight. But nobody wants to hear real solutions. From The Blaze, I think we're going to do these last three here, these next three, and then I think we're going to cut it for the day and do Twitter trending. From The Blaze, not every program has to be for everybody. AOC responds to a question about how student debt forgiveness would benefit those who have already paid off their student loans. From Alex Nitzberg. Why don't I have any text about this? Apparently there's no content in this article. Thanks, Glenn Beck. All right, let's talk about this one. From Axios. Samantha Power, food shortages, another catastrophic effect of Russia's war. From Ivana Sarik. Soaring global food shortages are another catastrophic effect of the Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine, USAID Administrator Samantha Power told ABC's This Week on Sunday. Russia and Ukraine supplied about 30% of the world's wheat and barley before the war. 36 countries, including some of the world's most vulnerable and impoverished, relied on them for more than half of their wheat imports. Secretary General Antonio Guterres warned on March that the war in Ukraine threatened to lead to global hunger crisis. Power, who previously served as U.S. ambassador to the UN, said global food prices are up 34% from where they were a year ago, aided by substantially, again, by this invasion. President Biden said Thursday his admin has sent Congress a supplemental request for an additional $33 billion for humanitarian and military aid to Ukraine. We've gone to Congress asking for a substantial increase in humanitarian assistance, Power said, adding that the USAID is also working with farmers to increase food supply. Fertilizer shortages are real now because Russia is a big exporter of fertilizer, and even though fertilizer is not sanctioned, less fertilizer is coming out of Russia, Power added. As a result, we're working with countries to think about natural solutions like manure and compost. We really do need this financial support from Congress to be able to meet emergency food needs, so we don't see cascading deadly effects of Russia's war extend into Africa and beyond. Power on CBS's Face the Nation expressed gratitude to Congress for its previous willingness to approve aid packages for Ukraine. She said the funds are being used on everything from demining to trauma kits to food assistance. But she goes on to tell us that this is a way to go back and push left-wing policies as well. Or maybe she doesn't, because it looks like The Blaze does not have content in this one either. So I guess I'll figure out what's going wrong with The Blaze and why we don't have this, but for now, we're going to hit Twitter trending and head out of here for the day. So let's go grab the Explore tab and let's see what we've got going on here. Trending. Hashtag it's always Twitch. That's what we should be doing. Alright, on the Explore page, and the last thing we do on a Tuesday is go through the top 5 trends, excluding trends that include Tuesday Vibe, Tuesday Thoughts, Tuesday etc., Tuesday Motivation, stuff like that, and see what's actually going on in the world. And number 1 trending, of course, because it's what we spent almost the entirety of the top of the program discussing, is Roe versus Wade. Leaked Supreme Court documents suggest vote will overturn Roe versus Wade, Politico reports. Le Monde in English says abortion rights. The news outlet Politico published a draft opinion that could overturn Roe versus Wade. Politico, Supreme Court has voted to strike down Roe versus Wade. Shannon Watts, a reminder that the same lawmakers who say gun laws won't stop gun violence believe abortion laws will stop abortion. Massey, if SCOTUS were to overturn Roe versus Wade, it would turn lawmaking authority back to legislatures. In fact, it seems unlikely that abortion laws would change in Massachusetts. So why are Senators Warren and Markey so apoplectic? We read that one already. Ed Markey. A stolen, illegitimate, and far-right Supreme Court majority appears set to destroy the right to abortion, an essential right which protects the health, safety, and freedom of millions of Americans. There is no other recourse. We must expand the court. You know, it sounds like it's almost not about the abortion rights. It's about pushing another agenda. Ahmed Baba, this Roe vs. Wade news dropping during the Gilded Age themed Met Gala is pretty dystopian. Yeah, because those people, if they do want one, are all going to be able to go get one anyway. My senator, Tammy Baldwin, if SCOTUS is going to legislate from the bench and turn back the clock 50 years on... No, Tammy, no, that's not what's happening. Legislate from the bench is what happened 49 years ago. This is giving you, Tammy, the ability to legislate, instead of SCOTUS legislating from the bench. And turn back the clock 50 years on Roe v. Wade, then the Senate needs to pass the Women's Health Protection Act, and we need to eliminate the filibuster to get it done. We should do that too, WHPA. Radical Jesus says overturning Roe v. Wade is going to get people killed. It's a fact. I don't think that's Jesus. I think that's Radical Jesus. And one that I pointed out as the winner off of this, definitely not advice, Stephanie XAG says, the SCOTUS Roe v. Wade leak is an attempt to push Democratic midterms and the associated agenda, packed courts, and the filibuster, painting anyone who doesn't agree with the narrative as extremist. We've seen all three just in this trend. This is charade. This charade is not about your rights. It's merely a mirage for control. Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. Thank you, Stephanie, for that. And Chad Prather, look at the last one off this trend, and said, it's time for Americans to lose the ability to murder their unborn children. Hate to ruin your party, not really though. Heather Gardner says, you think these I just said that Prather would get the last word, but this one. If you think these extremists from the radical right will stop at just Roe, think again. Contraception, LGBTQ plus rights, marriage equality. Don't think it can't happen? It just did. Roe versus Wade. So, yeah, this is all about control, though. Oh, we've got one from Arvel right up at the top. He must have been working while he was watching the program. Arvel, damn dirty centrist, says, women don't accidentally get pregnant. It's a knowing act. Abortion isn't birth control, it's murder. What pro-choice people think happens to get women who accidentally get pregnant. Oh no, the bra fell off. Alright, let's move off of that one because we could go sit into that forever and ever. Number 2, Teacher Appreciation Day. Steelers say today and every day, which gave them an opportunity to put their logo on something else. Today and every day, we thank all teachers and their hard work and dedication. Happy Teacher Appreciation Day. They give us a week, but today is our day. Happy Teacher Appreciation Day, or National Teachers Day to my fellow teachers. Apple Education. That sounds dystopian. Today and every day, Apple celebrates educators who are committed to making a difference in students' lives. In honor of Teacher Appreciation Day, we asked educators to share what stood out to them most about their school year so far. Here's what they said, and we're not going to watch that. So yes, apparently today is Teacher Appreciation Day. We could sit down and talk about the teachers who are refusing to go to work and want to go back and Zoom and this and that and the next thing, but yeah. Teacher Appreciation Day it is. Alright. Next one, hashtag Election Day. Indiana and Ohio primaries are today, so if you are in Indiana or Ohio, make sure you get out to your polls. Brandon West, this just proves that we need to vote. Today I'll be phone banking to help get people to vote in Ohio. As long as they vote my way. If they vote the other way, I'll call them evil MAGA Trumpists. And call them names. Steve Garbetz says rain plus midterm plus primary, like 10% turnout today, probably. Jason B. Martin says, as a physician, I've seen how unsafe abortions have put people in ICU. We can't let this stand. On the way to do this, let's vote. Yeah, you think that this all happened organically? No, this is right before a primary. So, Indiana and Ohio. If you're there, get out and go make your voice heard. Number 5, World Press Freedom Day. Is that all of them? Did we do all 4 already? No, we skipped Tuesday 5, that's right. I'm like, I thought this was only 4, but... Editor's note, World Press Freedom Day. Your support is crucial. India needs independent media, and independent media needs you. Val Demings, without a free press, powerful people will take advantage of us and we'll never know it. Freedom of speech and press is a bedrock of American freedom, which is why you have a disinformation board. Val Demings, because you're so concerned about free speech. No, you're concerned about speech that you control, Val Demings. Because what I'm doing here would be considered free speech, and yet I'm sure that given the opportunity, Mrs. Demings, you would like to see me imprisoned. That's somebody that should be taken over for free speech and free press. Julian Assange. Bring Julian Assange home. Absolutely. Pardon Julian Assange. Julian did nothing wrong. That's who we should be talking about on World Free Press Day. Alright, and the last one. Daily Quirtle 99. So we'll have to see how Arvold did with his Quirtle today. But he's making memes, so we will let him do the Lord's work in making the memes instead of doing Quirtle. People attempt to guess 4 5-letter words at once in Quirtle, which is a take on the viral brain teaser Wordle. Warren Ward got 6, 4, 3, and 7. Ian Fraser failed the top right. Chris Burns got 7, 5, 4, 6. Shay got 8, 3, 4, 7. And Phage Miller failed the top left. I've never played Wordle, I've never played Quirtle, but they always seem to show up on Twitter Trending Day, so that's what we see off of that. Oh. Arvel, I haven't done Quirtle yet. Too many memes to make. Oh, and work. Alright, and with that, I think we're done. I think we're out of here. Where's my outro music? There it is. That's the one disadvantage of 3 screens is you can't really know what's always around you at all times. Let's head out of here for the day. Alright, so thanks everybody who came by, chatted, and hung out with us throughout the day. The supporters, the detractors, we love the detractors too because they watch the advertisement to get in here just the same as everybody else. So thank you for watching the commercial and making me another couple pennies onto this. And, well, adding into the conversation as well. If you guys like what you saw, we'll be back here same time tomorrow morning for more contemporary, more news headlines, more discussions, more live chat, and more everything else. I'm sure we will still be talking about the Roe vs. Wade overturn. Plus, we've got this last stack of articles over here to go over again, so come back here tomorrow for that to see what we have going on with that and what's going on in the world. We might do a video game stream this weekend just for the fuck of it, just for the hell of it, because, you know, we work hard so much here, and I was out of town this past weekend. I do have to get across the board going again, and I think that we should do across the board talking about this. Roe versus Wade thing. So if there are people that you want to see on across the board, we hope to get a variety of different opinions on there. Nominate that person. Let me know who that person is. Drop an @ if you can, and let that person know as well that you're nominating that person, and see if we can work something out. If we can do something, that will be at 5:30 Central Time on Saturdays. So possibly let's go see what's going on with that and where that goes. Otherwise, we'll be back here tomorrow. Join us tomorrow for more contemporary, more news, and more headlines, and we will see you then. And until then, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.